Hello everyone and welcome to the IMSA 90 minutes of Sebring. We've had a lot of Sebring action so far this weekend and it continues here on the iRacing Esports Network, this time with TCR cars and GT4s, some of the new content on iRacing. I am Connery Maddock. I am joined by Randy Chenna for this 90-minute event. Thank you very much for IMSA for making this event possible. And Randy, we're just about to get set for qualifying, but we just got to describe what the series, or what this race is actually going to be about and what it will feature for those winners.
Yeah, this is one of the IMSA levels that is so much fun to watch. Michelin Pilot Challenge is what this is emulating, and you got the brand new Porsche GT4 cars in the upper category, and the Audi TCR is going to put on an absolutely amazing show. And I'm loving this, Connery, because it's going to be a first-time taste for us with this multi-class combination. It's going to be something that I think is going to be really common over the coming years on the iRacing service. GT4 has really been a niche people have wanted for quite a while, and I think it's going to be pretty popular.
I think it's going to be incredibly popular as well. It's a pretty stacked field here today in both of the two classes. Lots of names from the pro side of iRacing and a couple of others looking to try and get themselves in as well. This is shaping up to be an absolutely fantastic event indeed, featuring, of course, the front-wheel drive Audi RS3 LMS TCR car, and of course the new car for this season, the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 machine, out there for the first time, and I believe for the first time on an iRacing official broadcast.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is our first iRacing official. I'm sure some of the there's probably been some sort of leagues over week 13, and as we moved on into the first official week that have done one. But yeah, I think for sure first iRacing official broadcast with this new car as we ride on board with Sindre Sass, who's currently out for a lap in his Porsche. See heading him down in towards the hairpin. So the thing about this car, I'm sure a lot of people who maybe aren't up to speed on the difference between a lot of the cars, Connery. If you imagine the Porsche Cup car that we have, that we see in the Porsche Esports Super Cup and so many other series as well, this thing gets around Sebring about 8 to 10 seconds slower per lap than that Porsche Cup car. So it's a little bit more of a production-based vehicle, has a lot more of the production-based sort of electrical systems in it. I mean, we always kind of talk about GT3 cars being like what happens when you kind of just shove a roll cage into insert supercar here pretty much. But this is really kind of an example of what happens when you just clear out the interior, shove a roll cage, and maybe throw some suspension, racing suspension components on a Porsche Cayman. This is sort of what you get. That's what GT4 is really supposed to be. And it's, like I said, it's a great category, and it's the sort of category I've always loved. I've loved this sort of pace level of GT and sports cars for years. As Sindre runs a little bit wide coming out of Le Mans and working down this long Ullman straightaway in towards Sunset. And I think he may have 1x'd himself. That's going to be the end of the lap.
Yeah, so he just returns just to try and get some heat in those tires. Of course, both these cars running the new tire model, and you can just see that be featured because the tires are pretty cold coming out of the pits for the first time. You do need to work those tires just like the real world and get some energy into them before you can go anywhere near fast. But we're still waiting for the first couple of times to come through here in qualifying. You see Ali Putti there in that TCR machine. He heads his way across the line, a 2:14.0 there. But that's not going to be a competitive lap time at all. That's more like an outlap for Putti there. But finally, we do get the first set of times come through. Marcel Fassbender in provisional pole position for the GT4 class right now, whereas Jackson Harlow is provisional pole position for the Audis at the moment, as Kimi Soimonen pips him to the post just slightly.
Yeah, but we need to keep an eye on this second hot lap here because, with the way the tires work, Conrad, getting them up to temps, these guys only have 2 laps. So the second lap's going to be quick. It's not often you'll see the opening lap be the fast one unless someone makes a mistake. So people might be on pole now, but a lot of people, like I think we saw from Sindre, I think he was just, when we saw him going down that back straightaway, I think he was just trying to pump heat into his set of tires for lap number 2. That was his opening lap. So the second trip around, in about a minute and a half times now that some people have come through, that's going to be the one to really keep an eye on.
Yeah. Cedric setting a bit of a banker lap there, just using their first flying lap just to get their sights set for what should be a faster second flying lap here at Sebring. There's Sindre Setsos, as we saw weaving all the way down the Ullman Straight to try and get some heat into those tires. He is now on his fast lap here, coming up towards the right, and just heading his way through the heavy over the curb as well. You can just see the suspension of that car bouncing all around as he tries to negotiate the circuit, and he's leaving no piece of real estate out there untouched by that Porsche.
Yeah, and you're not going to want to, like we were talking about, one of the big reasons this car is slower than the Porsche Cup car is it doesn't have quite enough power. You know, the Porsche Cup car is probably touching 150, 160 at the end of the straight. You're hitting about 140 here in this Porsche GT4 machine, so it's a lot more momentum based. Look at it bouncing over the bumps there as Sindre works through that final corner. Really see the hands busy there on the steering wheel, and this is going to be one of the first kind of indicators we get on the lap times. He goes pole at a 2:09.3.
Yeah, great little lap there for Sindre Setsos. Now we only have 1 minute left remaining in the session, and well, Sindre, he is pole by only around about 1.5 tenths of a second. Govan Keeney heading his way across the line right now. He sets a 2:10. I don't think it's going to be valid, as he might have gotten off track somewhere out there on circuit, and that was a little bit embarrassing because he's not going to have enough time to get back out there and set a lap time, so he'll have to start near enough the back of the grid. So look at him to see one driver that might be able to work their way back through the field. But looking in TCRs, though, it's Cedric Nebelczyk pole position for that one at the moment. Is there anyone out there that could possibly surpass that lap time? I'm currently having a quick flick through. Doesn't look like for now. We see Xavier Sanchez and Simon Trendell coming towards the very, very tail end of a lap now, but I don't think they'll be able to quite get there unless I can be proven wrong.
Well, Simon's managed to just actually cross start finish. He improves by a second, but only goes to a 12.7, and everyone else we had is not going to be able to even get the chance, Connery, because that's the wrap on qualifying, and these guys are going to get ready to get gridded up.
Yes, they are. So the grid has been set for this, the IMSA 90 minutes of Sebring. Sindre Setsos at the top of the standings when it comes to GT4s. Ayanshan Guvan on that front row as well. Sergio Anancio and Carlos Fenalosa will round out the top 4 cars. Marcel Fassbender, you see Josh Thompson, Thomas Pichitan, and Enzo Benito rounding out the top 8 in the fastest class here today. Maxime Ranstein and Diego Catalan will bring things down to 10th place on the starting grid. Christopher Dambeat and Thibaut Prosp is coming down into P11 and P12. Justin Brunner lines up in P13, Jason Stenny P14, Moritz Lerner in P15, Daniel Presto in P16, DJ Alessandrini in P17, you see Dennis Grabowski in P18, Charlie Summers in P19, and those GT4s that did not qualify, Govan Keeney, Rafael Silva, Daniel Rash, and Lucas Galba, they'll be starting at the very back of that GT4 pack. Here is how your TCR pack looks, though, with Jack Cedric pole position for the British driver, with Cedric Nebelczyk in second place. Kimmo Soimonen in third, with Jackson Harlow lying up fourth. Thomas Gibson will line up fifth, with Joni Takkanen in sixth. Patrick Cugini in seventh place, with David Perez lining up eighth. Simon Trendell will start P9 as Eric Goldner lines up in P10. David Baker starts 11th, with Robin Hasse in 12th. Ross Balfour starts 13th here today in the TCR class, with Cedric Isma in P14, Ali Pozzi in P15, and Hugo in P16. Antonin Titus will start P17, Lewis Goodway in P18, Xavier Sanchez and Antti Salminen will bring things down to your top 20. You see George Simmons rounding up the 21 cars that comprise your TCR field, and that is very good timing. Your cars are rolling off the starting grid for the full pace lap here of the Sebring International Raceway, and I can't wait to get this race started, Randy.
Yeah, I can't. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've really been looking forward to this. I always love when we get new combinations, Connery, and new strategy stuff. That's going to be a big thing to talk about for the GT4s. Like we said, this is the first time we're seeing this car at Race Spot TV, and this is the first time we're seeing it go around for 90 minutes. I have no idea what the tire strategy is going to be. I know these guys are going to have to make a fuel stop and come down pit road for that, but are they going to come down for tires? Who knows? And then TCR is a big question mark as well, actually. We've just recently gotten an update to, of course, these cars as well. Their fuel economy has been improved. The TCRs are fuel limited to 77 minutes, so for those who are maybe TCR aficionados thinking that maybe they could go the hour and a half, which is kind of what you can do on a fuel tank these days since the update, the recent week 13. They will have to make a fuel stop, but what are you going to do as far as tires, Connery? That's going to be the big question. It is really, really tough to make TCR tires last for 90 minutes, but you're probably not going to be needing to take a full tank of fuel. Do you maybe risk taking front tires? That's going to be the big question here. Probably in about 45 to maybe an hour's time when we eventually see people on pit road.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see what the strategy is going to be in TCRs. I think if you ask me, then if you are going to take tires at all, it's going to be just those two front ones. I don't think you can justify the all-four tire change in TCRs. And, well, GT4s at the moment, we're on board with that pace car heading its way through towards the end of the first sector into the middle sector of the lap. And we'll soon be seeing some absolutely fantastic racing here in the IMSA, in these IMSA classes. But everyone just setting themselves up now for the moment. We have a lot of drivers that have a great amount of ability here today. You saw Jack Cedric pole position in TCRs. Nebelzek as well is known to pull results out of the bag as well. But I'm more interested in those drivers that did not have a good qualifying and are now starting near the back. The likes of Govan Keeney towards the back. You see Xavier Sanchez towards the back at TCRs as well. He can climb his way through the field on a good day. So it's not just going to be focused at the front of the field. Watch for those drivers at the back making progress.
Yeah, that's really the big thing, and it's something that we talk about a lot even in the TCRs, and I think we're going to see it in the Porsches as well. Tire conservation, and like we said, the TCR car, especially being a front-wheel drive machine, it really eats up the tires, and there might be some people who are able to get a quick lap out of it in qualifying that over the course of the race might overuse that rubber and might then fall. There might be people who maybe can conserve the tires better, who can then work their way through the field. We'll have to monitor that in TCR, and of course in GT4 as well, because like we've been saying already, this is an entirely new thing for us, but they're about 3/4 of the way down the Ullman Straight, and we're getting ready to kick this off.
We are getting ready. Just 10-15 seconds away from the green flag. Look to that Porsche pace car to pull on towards pit lane. Field will then be under the control of Sindre Setsos coming to the green flag. We're just about to go green flag racing here at Sebring for 90 minutes in the GT4s and the TCRs. It's already a bit of a scrap for podium positions. Zayan Changuven will be challenged here in towards turn number 1. We see 3 wide already for P3, Fenolosa, Agancio, Josh Thompson, all involved in this one as they storm through the first sector. Single file for the podium positions. There's a bit of contact behind, but Josh Thompson is able to hold on to it. Then we have a look at your TCR class. Jack Cedric leads through turn 1. Nebelzek second in line. Thomas Gibson in third. It looks like the TCRs have been a lot cleaner coming through turn 1 than what the GT4s were, as they all stack up in through turn 2 and turn 3. Yoni Tankinen and David Perez having a bit of a fight through there. There's a car around though. Moritz Lohner with a problem.
Unfortunately there for Maurice Lohner, as you see all the cars cycling through. We're going to go to replay here of what exactly happened to Maurice. And you see car around in front of him. There was a couple cars going around, and really Maurice was just sort of there, and unfortunate, just sort of got tagged. But head of the Porsche field, these guys starting to string out a little bit. Top 5, Connery, already have a gap over the rest of the field. It's still Sindre Setsos who leads over Anchi and Guven. Carlos Fenolosa in third, Sergio Ignacio fourth, and Josh Thompson currently rounding out your top 5. Josh does run GT4 in real life. We've heard of his what he's gotten down to at the likes of the Bathurst 12-hour in the past. So Josh is probably going to feel right at home behind the wheel of this Porsche GT4.
Yeah, he is. Look at this battle for positions just inside the top 10. Christopher Dambeat trying to hold on to position over Petitjean here. As we're riding on board with Dambeat, we can get that rear view. That number 36 Porsche big in the mirrors at the moment. And Daniel Patstor as well is looking particularly threatening here at this early stage. We've seen some decent separation though between these positions and positions further up into P8 and P9 already, as there's about a 2.5 second gap between P10 and P11 at the P8 and P9, excuse me, at the moment. But coming towards the end of the first lap then, as those Porsches head their way through the final corner of Sunset Bend at Sebring. There's a bit of side-by-side behind though. That's Rafael Silva and Justin Brunner having a bit of a duel into the first corner, and very quickly we start to see TCR cars as well. So they've all bunched up together here on the start a little bit with those GT4 cars that have had problems. They've been cycled back into this TCR train.
And this is going to be a problem for the TCR cars all race, because there's not a huge differential in speed between the faster TCR machines and some of the slower GT4 cars. In qualifying, it was only a 2-second difference between the slowest Porsche in qualifying and the fastest Audi that ended up on pole of Jack Sedgwick. So this is a potential problem these guys will have to deal with now that they have damaged Porsches. Now they're going to have to deal with cars that are, should be quicker. They're going to be in the middle of the fight. You see now the damaged Porsche separating the fight amongst your top three in your Audi class, and well, he's probably going to be stuck having to, I'd say, probably get out of the way is Justin Brunner if the likes of Thomas Gibson and Kimo Suominen start getting aggressive.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and well, these Porsches might be disrupting battles in your TCRs already. They all absolutely follow all nose to tail, coming through the hairpin section as close as you like between TCRs and Porsches alike right now. As you can see, those two Core Sim Racing Audis there just behind your race leaders. That's Thomas Gibson and Kimo Suominen. So Gibson has a bit of a slide, struggled to get through turn 10 of Cunningham, and it allows his teammate to get the run in towards Tower Corner. But how aggressive does Suominen want to be with his teammate here? Not that much is the answer, as Gibson's still struggling through some of these corners.
Yeah, still a little bit. I think Gibson might give it up to his teammate. Actually, no. I thought the way that Kimo was poking out there, I thought that Thomas might let his sister car through, but that's not going to be the answer. Through Bishop, they're going to run. You see this huge train of cars all single filed out here as they work towards Le Mans to work down the Ullman Straight for what's going to be the second time for your Audi category. And like you said at the start, Connery, been a much cleaner start here in the Audis. We've seen a handful of those Porsches get into problems. Not really seen that for the Audis. I think all cars still have straight body panels. I don't see anyone with anything bent or broken on those race cars, and that's important because remember, not only new tire model and not only new tire dynamics on these cars, but new damage model on both of these vehicles as well is going to make things spicy. As Justin Brunner is going to come down pit road, he's that GT4 car in your Audi mix, and that's going to clean things up for the core duo.
Yeah, it is, and well, we have a bit of a battle inside the Porsches at the moment, as Anshanguven and Fenalosa are pretty close. This is for P2 in that GT4 class, and there's only a couple of tenths of a second separating them at the moment, and they have a decent gap over the car behind that stands at around about 6-7 tenths of a second, so they have a little bit of breathing room to get this one sorted, but that can be so easily gobbled up with an extended side-by-side battle. We saw so many of those in the Sebring 12.
Yeah, you're right. That's what we did. Sebring definitely provided some awesome racing, and it seems like after the initial kind of salvo, Connery, things have really calmed down. GT4 is kind of spreading out nicely. There's still close gaps here, 6 tenths between Sindre and Guven. Another few tenths back to Carlos Fenalosa. Everyone's giving themselves, a little bit of space. There's still close racing here, but they're not really pounding each other quite the way you might expect. Now, in your TCR category, these are proper tutoring cars, and these guys are all over one another. Jack Sedgwick and Cedric Nibali used to fight for the lead there. Only really a couple car lengths as the core teammates continue to duke it out between Gibson and Kimo.
Yeah, I'm reminded of some of the other series that we broadcast here on iRacing that do use those TCR cars. Usually inside a first stint, they're all together in one train, just slipstreaming off of each other. And it looks like that is similar to what we're seeing right now. Cedric leading them around at the moment with Nebelschek in tow. Gibson in third place, trying to make up a little bit of a gap here. Looks like he's gotten into the swing of things now. We saw him struggling in the opening couple of laps, but that could just have been due to the cold tires as through Le Mans corner they head. Just spotting the battle for P6 and 7 in TCRs at the moment, going side by side. That was Jackson Harlow losing a position to Patrick Kubinci, and well, Harlow just having to concede the loss on that occasion and live to fight another day.
Yeah, you see Charlie Summers in the mix of this little fight right now in the Porsches, that able to now just start getting away. But Patrick has not been able to get away from Jackson. What do you got, Connery?
Race lead. They're about to go side by side through the first corner, but Cedric able to hold on for now. Nebelschek, that was the first big look that he's had in a while, and I get the feeling that Cedric won't be able to shake this train, at least for the until the pit stops, because everyone's just slipstreaming off each other, keeping the draft train going, and he's just not able to get away.
Yeah, I mean, the Audis do provide this sort of racing. Just a great slipstream, you know, not a ton of power, but they have a good amount of drag due to that big rear wing as they work down into the hairpin. Maybe a move from Thomas Gibson on Cedric, but not quite close enough. He was thinking about it. Chemo thinking of making something to happen as well. You see they're going to start to fan out, and you see that Porsche wanted to maybe start working its way through and getting by these guys, Connery, but I'm not sure if that's going to open up. But talking about that, actually, I don't think this Porsche is nearly as slipstreamy as the Audi is, Connery, because we're not seeing the draft be all that powerful. And of course, you look at that Porsche GT4 car, it doesn't really have a big rear wing on it. No real sign of aero. It has a little, you know, there is a wing on it, but it's sort of the Porsche production wing is what it is. Maybe slightly reprofiled for motorsport, but, you know, not generating a lot of drag is that Porsche Cayman GT4.
Yeah, it's not, and Charlie Summers still stuck in the TCR train at the moment, struggling to make forward progress, and that's sometimes the slight problem where you know you've fallen behind in the faster class, and the TCRs aren't that much slower than the Porsches here in this situation. So it's a struggle, even if you are the faster class, to try and get by. Finally, he'll try to make progress.
Oh, we got a car around on the Ullman Straight, I think.
We do.
No, I take that back.
Oh, there was a car slow. Yes, I think that's Jackson Harlow that's had a problem. And now he's hemorrhaging a couple more positions. But meanwhile, it looks like this leading train heading its way through at the moment. There's the battling behind as well as now Thomas Gibson. Well, here comes the Porsche on the outside that finally trying to work its way through, but there was almost contact with the TCR race leaders in towards turn one. They managed to narrowly avoid coming together, though. Nebelschek had another big look into turn one, but it's another look that didn't pay off. And now that Porsche is, you know, how is the patience of that Porsche? Do they want to get through quickly, or do they just sit behind, not wanting to disrupt this battle?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Charlie Summers, you have to be patient here. You've had some sort of mistake, and you already find yourself 13 seconds back. Yeah, you want to work your way forward, but this is the opportunity right here off of Big Ben. He gets the run. He should clear both of them, both Jack as well as Cedric, and actually I think both Jack and Cedric, Jack and Cedric, lifting out of that early to let that Porsche slide on through. So they're going to have a clean fight now just between the five of them. So the top five in your Audi TCR category doing everything they can to be on top of each other and still let that Porsche through to keep it out of the mix as much as possible.
Yeah, so the TCR leading train, not disrupted by cars of another class anymore. 5 strong at the moment. There's separation between P5 and P6 in TCRs at the moment, but we'll have to see if that continues throughout the rest of this first stint, as TCRs seemingly the class that's giving us all the action at the moment. You can see that Yoni Tankman on the back of this train.
Oh, problem! GT4 around. Josh Thompson just got tagged by Enzo Benito down in the down in Sunset Bend. Is who that was. Enzo getting the run and just showing the nose, and oh, that one's tough to call. I think a little bit. I think those just a racing incident between those two, but Enzo trying to show the nose and Josh trying to cut it off, and just a little bit of a touch to that 10 machine, and sees Josh going around.
Yeah, that's sometimes the problem with a corner, that you can go multiple different lines through. Some of them clash, shall we say. And we'll see it up on the replay. Just the slightest bits of contact is enough to spin Josh Thompson around. And he didn't have to wait for long on the outside of Sunset Bend, so he's able to rejoin sort of in the mid-pack of the GT4 class. So at least he's got that going for him, but he has now been cycled down into P12.
Yeah, he's not going to be overly excited about that, I suspect. It's really unfortunate the way that panned out. See, still getting a replay of it. You see there's that slight touch, and yeah, just going around. Just a little bit of a tap, and especially in that part of the racetrack, Connery. It's just such a high-speed section of the racetrack with so many bumps since turn 17 here at Sebring that, any little contact with anybody is going to really end up sending that car around. But pretty much through our first quarter hour here of the race, and, it's definitely interesting to see is, side-by-side in TCR at the hairpin between Jack Cedric and Cedric Neebly. Cedric not able to make that stick, and Jack able to defend up the inside.
Yeah, it's another attempt from that Team RSO driver into the hairpin, and it was the positioning of Cedric which had to force Nielzik to try around the outside, because Nielzik originally thought he could sneak his way down the inside, but it was only about half a car's width of space there, so simply not able to make that one work. Returns to the outside, tries around there, and again it's unsuccessful. So Jack Cedric, it's been a great defensive drive so far at the front of the field in TCRs, but we're still early doors as far as this race is concerned. He has to do this for quite a while yet.
Yeah, he does, and that's what makes TCR so difficult. And of course, the thing as well, Connery, we talked about the fact that, there could be fuel strategy on hand as well as tire strategy. If you're Cedric Neebelisk and the likes of Gibson, Swalmanen, maybe even Joni Takinen, even some of the guys in the second group, Jackson Harlow, Eric Goldner, Simon Trundle, David Baker, anyone in sort of this top 10 right now that's still somewhat in touch with the leader, maybe you're able to sit back there and do some slipstreaming and save some fuel. Might be able to make you pick up a spot here or there over the course of this race when we get to the pit stop cycle, because like we said, it's not going to be a long pit cycle for these guys on pit road, so any little bit you can save could actually be big.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're no stranger to fuel-saving games in TCRs, although maybe at this race has just a little less, so Cedric's slightly sketchy on the brakes in towards turn number 1. That rear end was sort of sliding around a little bit, and that's just what happens sometimes in these front-wheel drive cars, as you ride on board with your TCR race leader, looking back at that Audi of Nebelzik, and through Big Bends. This is where Nebelzik had an opportunity last time around the circuit into the hairpin, but he's not going to be in the position to do the same on this particular lap, so he just has to stay behind, get his normal braking point in towards the hairpin, and just try to continue to apply the pressure to the back of that NX car.
Yeah, he's doing everything he can, but he needs to be, of course, careful as well, Connor, because you have a pair of court cars that, Thomas Gibson has been able to keep his teammate of Kimo Swalmanen in check, and Joni Takinen wants to get through as well at the tail end of this little 5-car train. So as much as I think Cedric would love to be leading right now, he's definitely doing well to be calm and smart about this with how this gap is getting managed.
Yeah, so there we go. We see some side-by-side in your GT4 class, though, because Fendelusa and Fassbender were having a bit of a duel in through Sunset Bend, and it might even continue through to the exit as well. Fassbender with the speed off. He'll look to drive his right-hand side down the pit straight to make this one happen. Fendelusa on the inside there, and now it's a battle into turn 1. Fendelusa carries speed into the corner, but looks like Fassbender's looking for the cutback move. He slides his way alongside once again. Now hits the brakes into turn 3. Fassbender has the corner, he has the pass. Fendelusa looking for a response through the end of this first sector, but Fassbender is through.
That was greatly well driven there by Marcel Fassbender. Just a little bit wide with Fendelusa at turn 1. He sent it down on the brakes and wasn't quite able to get the car hooked up, and because of that opened the opportunity for the cutback lane for Marcel down into the hairpin. No response going to be able to be thrown by Carlos Fendelusa, but this is still a nice little 4-car train that is now been produced because of this. 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th all close. We've seen Fenalosa, Connery. He qualified decently well and was as high as 3rd at one point, but seems to maybe be struggling with that race car a little bit now that we're about 16, 17 minutes into this. Maybe doesn't have the tire setup quite dialed in the way a lot of others might, but he seems to be slowly falling backwards.
Yeah, just sliding back through the order as that car, and hoping that it doesn't continue any further. But you do have cars like Enzo Benito in the background in that red machine. You also have Diego Catalan on the back of this train as well. So it's going to be a struggle for Fenalosa to hold position against especially Enzo Benito, who is a very, very accomplished sim racer in his own right. A slight mistake there for Fenalosa into the Le Mans corner, misses the apex slightly, allows Enzo Benito to just get that little bit closer, and now sit on the slipstream down towards sunset.
Well, we know that Enzo is brave enough to be able to potentially send a move there. You can just ask Josh Thompson about that, but nothing going just yet. You see Enzo's trying to set up on the outside and really set up the run down this front straightaway. Let's see what happens. Carlos, a little bit wide again through sunset, hit a couple of the bumps in a way that you don't really want to, and now here comes Enzo Benito. He closes in about half a car length, 3/4 of a car length as they work down this front straightaway. Enzo's going to eye up the outside, and Carlos, he's trying the same defensive move. He's got it closer to the wall this time, but Enzo's got to run, and Carlos is wide. Here comes Enzo, and he's going to have the spot.
Oh, Fenalosa out into the dirt and grass. He's been able to hold on to it, but he does lose the position to Enzo Benito in through the first sector. So that's another -1 in terms of position for Fenalosa as he continues his slide back through. Diego Catalan on the back of this one, not in the position to be able to capitalize on that mistake as well. But well held still, though, for Fenalosa through the dirt and the grass. It's better to lose one position than to lose everything by finding a barrier.
Yeah, you're right about that, but his struggles are definitely continuing because now he's going to have Diego Catalan right up his tailpipe. Diego having a good run here and has good speed. So let's see, down into Cunningham. Going to eye up the inside is Diego and Carlos. That's a late blocking maneuver there. Diego at the last second tried to move across and block the move, and I think what's happening, Connery, is I think Carlos is just seeing red at the moment. He's pushing a little bit too hard. He's forcing himself into mistakes, and that little jink right there going down into Cunningham was another kind of indicator of that. He's trying desperately to retain positions. What he needs to do is take a breath and not be so desperate, and he'll probably end up finding a few tenths in that race car.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that assessment as well. He's made a couple of mistakes through Le Mans corner already that has given his opponents the advantage. This time around, though, does clip the apex quite cleanly, so at least he sorted out for this particular lap. But Catalan now looking very, very strong indeed. He gained about half a second alone, if not more, on that last lap. So it's he's definitely a very strong driver at this point in the race, with Fenalosa's form dropping a little bit through Sunset Bend. And you can see those slightly different lines being taken through. Catalan a little bit shallower coming through the second apex, but now he is all on his own in this 1-versus-1 duel.
Yeah, it's it's almost one of the adage, one of we won me on rust. It's basically what's happening right now between these two is through turn one. Both of them actually a little bit wide. Carlos a little loose maybe on the exit, the way he tracked back down and in, as their TCR race lead is actually still close, but they're still playing relatively calm with one another in comparison to what we might see here. But, you know, with the way things have been going here, Conrad, thinking for Diego Catalan, the next opportunity he gets, I think he's just going to take it, if I'm honest, because the way that Carlos has kind of blocked him and really, kind of been defensive, almost putting Diego in a situation where if Diego's going to make the move, it's going to have to be a hard send. Not going to be into the hairpin this time, though.
Yeah, he's just going to bide his time for now. And meanwhile, all the time that this has been going on, the TCR race lead has been very, very close indeed. And we get a view of that now as they exit out of the first turn. It's still this 5-car train for the race lead in TCRs. Jack Sedgwick is doing all of the defensive moves right now to keep the train behind him, and I have to say he's doing a good job.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much of a surprise. This is really kind of a who's who of the Audi TCR drivers we have on the Simmons side of the top 5. Sedgwick, Niebelis, Gibson, Swamanen, Takinen, Those are sort of the big names that have, run in this category in some of the private leagues and even the official series as well. So no surprise to see these guys training up at the front of the field, Connery, and certainly no surprise as well to see them racing well with one another. These guys have been on track with one another for now, we're pushing 6 months since the release of this car?
Yeah, absolutely, and the competition continues to deliver. In terms of the teams here, it's Inex, RSO from Core in that leading train. But look at this second pack, though. This is basically most of the rest of the TCR cars battling it out here. And currently this train being led by George Simmons at the moment. And he has a good couple of cars behind him. There's Goldner, there's Simon Trendell as part of Team Chimera as well, looking to try and make some forward progress. And Trendell, he is exactly where he started in terms of position right now, P number 9 in class. And, well, he has the option to move forward here. It's just the case of you can just be an absolute nuisance on the defensive in these cars, especially at a track which does have some narrow portions like this one.
I can tell you right now, as Simon's teammate, he's very much someone that tends to be patient. So he's not going to be too bothered with the fact that he is where he started right now, especially through this first stint. He's going to really let this play out until the end of the race. That's just, it's kind of the Team Chimera way, if I'm honest. And Simon's definitely one of the big proponents for that. So he's more than okay sitting where he is, as long as he can get himself to about the first round of pit stops and not get himself caught up in any incidents. And as big as the racing is around them, Connery, I don't think there's much point in trying to get overly aggressive, trying to work your way through this train of cars, because you're really just going to stack and hold everyone up. I think it's better for this entire group, because it's so many cars, to just sort of work together and run around, because they all seem to be about the same anyway.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. Everyone pretty close here in terms of the qualifying times, and I can say that for both classes as well. Especially that GT4 class, where we had the vast majority of everyone in the 2-minute 9-second mark in qualifying. So, and only being separated, certain positions by 1/10 of a second.
Oh, race lead. Cedric Nibali's up the inside here at the race lead. So something's going on between those two, but Jack has been able to defend at the hairpin.
Again, he's been able to defend, and Nebelzek has actually lost a bit of speed here off the hairpin. It might give an opportunity for Gibson to advance position, but Gibson's playing this very passively at the moment. Broke very early into turn 10 of Cunningham instead of going for the dive, so it just allows Nebelzek to get that bit of breathing room after that attempted pass into the race lead. And Cedric holding on as ever at the moment, and has to continue to do it, and at least until that first set of stops, where we'll actually see the slight fueling difference come in from those drivers that have been able to fuel safe in the train.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what these guys end up doing here, Connery, when the pit stops happen, because we're expecting fuel only for most people, but there is potentially some questions on some other things people can pull out as well. We'll have to see how this race kind of develops and how things go on. But I feel like Jack Sedgwick here, Connery, I don't think he's the quickest driver in this train of cars. Cedric is sort of a couple times, either through a blocking maneuver from Jack or just a slight mistake on Cedric's part, he's lost a little bit of ground, but he's been able to quickly kind of reel it back in. I don't think the pace difference is huge, but Cedric definitely seems to have the slight pace advantage over that Inex number 6 at the moment.
Yeah, Jack Cedric just pipping Nebelzik to the post when it comes to qualifying. Cedric was your pole position sitter, but he only did it by around about 0.2 of a second. And it seems like the race pace definitely equalized here between the two of them. And they're just continuing to tow that pack of 5 cars for the race lead along. There's a separation between P2 and P3 there, but that'll be gobbled up quite easily due to the draft. But it's fantastic to see these guys running in such close proximity without incidents at the moment. And for a class that's known for its bumper banging, I'm surprised there hasn't been more.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, touring cars, of course, have the notoriety of providing some aggressive racing from time to time, but when you're kind of in the endurance mindset, an hour and a half race, maybe not that long, Connery, but compared to, say, the 15, 20, and 30-minute sprints you might see in TCR vehicles and other touring car series around the world, it's a much longer format, and conserving the car and conserving the tires is much more important. So these guys, not only in terms of how they drive, but even how they set up these cars, this being a longer format race, you're going to probably be a lot lot less aggressive on the cambers. You're going to be a lot more aggressive with your suspension setup, just doing everything you can to conserve the tires rather than going for the ultra speed that you would if maybe this was round 1 of 4, say, of a touring car race somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, that is an absolutely brilliant point. You still have a couple of Porsche GT4 machines in this train still trying to work their way through. Rafael Silva and Justin Brunner, those two Porsches at the moment that are a little stuck inside this TCR train, but they're making slow progress through it. They're just picking off cars here and there as they work their way through. And, you know, if you're one of those leading cars now, especially Nebelzik, you know, there could be the option soon to use one of those Porsches to your advantage in terms of getting past.
You're absolutely right, and we saw that a couple times in the Sebring 12-hour yesterday, several times that people would use the traffic as a pick, be it faster or slower traffic. It's one of the skill sets you really need in multi-class racing, is knowing how to use the cars that are coming through or the cars that you are going through to your advantage with your competition. You see that pair of Porsches, they separated out those drivers 3rd, 4th, and 5th from this top two duo, but Cedric and Jack yet to get past just yet, and looks like Cedric's going to be the first to get pounced on, and Jack's going to be able to get into turn 3 clean. So this is going to separate your lead battle just a little bit.
Yeah, it is through the first sector of the lap, and Cedric's been given a little bit of breathing room, but still, you know, that traffic has to come through on him now, and is it going to be in a right place as far as Jack Cedric is concerned? It's going to be on the brakes into the hairpin, and Silva through only just, and now you can see that Justin Brunner is the meat in the sandwich right now between your two TCR Race League contenders, and Brunner going to be looking to make his way through, maybe coming through the middle sector here if he's close enough, but he could still just remain in the position for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think you're right, but and Brunner as well. He, I believe, is still NX teammates with Jack Sedgwick, so there'll be a little bit of interest there from Justin. Justin knows his race isn't going well. He's not going to want to interfere with a friend and teammate that's having a great run at the head of the field. So through Tower Corner they will work, and this should be the opportunity for Justin to get the power down on the run towards Bishop, and through Bishop he should pretty much have this spot opened up. It might hold up Sedgwick just a little bit on the brakes, but actually no, that's pretty much perfect there if you're Jack Sedgwick. Everything you would have asked for that Porsche coming through there, it was pretty much granted to him. So now Cedric, now half a second or so back, Connery, should still have a little bit of slipstream. He needs to be careful here, just can't make a mistake and let Jack potentially break that draft once he gets out to about 7, 8, 9 tenths of a second ahead.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity for Cedric to make sure that Nebelzik can't trouble him any longer. The gap is 6.5 tenths at the moment, but meanwhile Catalan and Fenalosa finally they decide to battle in your GT4 class, but Fenalosa this time able to hold on, and you can just see how perhaps out of position he was on the start there, and how, well, basically, I guess there's two ways to look at this. You can look at it in a negative way in terms of being out of position, but you can look at it in a positive way for Fenalosa with a great qualifying lap, but that the race pace can't quite meet.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you're dealing with a new car, Connor, you're going to see these sorts of things from drivers. You know, setups aren't completely dialed in on the sim yet. They're still, you know, compared to the Audi that have had now months of testing, these guys have had basically a week and a half to get these cars sorted out, sort out a qualifying setup, sort out a race setup, and, you know, then go out there. And every time we see one of the new vehicles, it's always something you see happen. You'll see some people who are really good in qualifying, but, you know, maybe not maintain the pace in the race. You might see people who, you know, qualify mid-pack, but the race pace is actually very, very good. So it's not much of a surprise to see that something like this is happening. But like you said, you kind of have to look at it in a highway for Carlos Fenalosa. Has something figured out in quali, just needs to figure out what it is that maybe doesn't translate from that fast single lap pace to a long race setup.
Yeah, so, you know, it's all a learning process, especially with a new car on the iRacing service. You know, it's only been here for a week or so, and you know, there's still so many things to try and figure out about that car. But meanwhile, battling just inside the top 10 in that class, though, as Daniel Patstor in P number 10 at the moment, trying to lock on to those two cars that have been dueling ahead of him. It was Christopher Dambeats and Ramstein that were having a fight coming through Sunset Bend, and Ramstein might have another opportunity soon as well, as he got a good run out of turn number 1. Can follow quite closely here through 3, 4, and 5 and set up for that run through Big Bend into the hairpin, which is perhaps one of the main overtaking opportunities here, apart from Sunset Bank.
Yeah, I mean, the hairpin's a big one. Turn 1 can be a good one as well, but Turn 2, also Turn 3 can be a great one as well. Dan Beats definitely doesn't have the speed here over Ramstein. They qualified relatively close to one another, but Maxime seems to have the slight, let's say, advantage at the moment as they work out of the hairpin and through these S's. Maybe a move down towards Cunningham, but this seems to be a situation, Connor, that this Porsche GT4 car, it doesn't slipstream up very well. You're going to see Maxim throw a little bit of a move to the outside of Cunningham, but not nearly enough overlap to make that work.
Yeah, it was a look, but nothing resulting from it for Ramstein. As well, Daniel Patstor on the back of this as well. He's just an outside observer for now. He's basically these two cars as cameraman at the moment, as he's not wanting to get himself involved just yet, but certainly there to pick up the pieces if it goes oh so wrong with the battle directly in front of him. Meanwhile, Thomas Gibson and Nebelzek there had a bit of a battle, and it looks like Gibson has come out on top in that one, as we'll get that TCR battle going to be going in just a little bit. But yeah, Gibson through. I think Nebelzek might have just made a mistake coming through the first sector, or there's a slowdown penalty because he didn't make it hard for that course in racing car to get its way through.
He might feel that Cedric has a little bit, that Gibson has a little bit of the pace advantage right now, Connery, because look at the gap. I mentioned the fact that they had to be careful and not let Jack Sedgwick get away. That gap has opened up to 1.2 seconds since Sedgwick has been able to break the slipstream. So maybe he thought that core sim racing car might be quicker, just let them through and see if Thomas can chase him down. But now that Jack has broken the slipstream, he is going really quick right now. He's opened up a couple tenths just on the run through Tower Corner. So he's doing a great job right now in this semi-cube Audi TCR.
So as the TCR race lead separates out, we still have a close run between Setsos and Guven for the race lead overall in your GT4 class, as they are only 3-4 tenths of a second apart from each other. So that's one to look at as well. They have a decent distance between themselves and P3 at the moment, on the border of about 2.5 seconds. So we're starting to see separation in your leading packs here, Randy, but of course this can all turn on its head so quickly. But like we saw at the very start of the race with a couple of drivers beating and banging a little bit, it could just happen again. But with everyone at this stage in the race now maybe looking to try and figure out when their first stop is going to come in, it might just be this calm until then.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And Guven, Turkish driver, raced in the Porsche Super Cup last year. Not the Esports Super Cup, the real Super Cup. So Guven doing quite well up here towards the head of the field. But these two, they've been calm on each other, Connery. I see Guven flashing the lights just a little bit, maybe trying to provide a little bit of pressure, or getting the mind of Sendre a little bit, just but that's not really worked out. But they've just been they've been close at a couple times. I've seen that gap as low down as about 1.5 tenths. But, Guven's not been nearly close enough to make a move, and every time he gets close, he seems to make a mistake and drop back a couple car lengths again.
Yeah, he did, and that gap does open up 4 tenths of a second on the way down the pit straight here. As Guven, as long as he can keep tabs on the race leader here and not let him get too far away at the front of the field, just inside the slipstream, then I have to argue that might just be a win in terms of the strategy for Guven, although Setsos went a little wide there coming through turn 3. Missed the apex slightly, had to recover a late apex instead, and it does allow Guven to close in about 1/10 of a second. So it's not just the one driver that's making a couple of mistakes here, it's both of them.
And another driver we need to keep an eye on, Connery, here in Porsche is the driver sitting in third, Sergio Ignacio. Last trip around the racetrack, Sindre and Guven were relatively close to one another, a 4.23 from Sindre and a 5.07 from Guven. Sergio Ignacio ripped out a 2.09.189, so 3-4 tenths quicker than the two cars in front of them, and he's only about a second and some change back. So if he's able to keep that speed consistent, that's the only time we've seen Ignacio rip I think that may have actually, that was his quickest lap of the race at a 209.1. If he can keep that pace advantage up, he's going to be there in about 5 or 6 laps time to the back of Guven, as Guven has reeled in that gap once again to Sendre. It's now nearly just under 2 tenths.
Yeah, it is. So Guven getting closer and closer. So is Agancio, like you quite rightfully mentioned there, Andy. So this all might close up for the race lead. We might get a 3-car train instead of the duo that we have right now. But Guven, this has been a very, very good lap here to catch right up to the back bumper of that Corse Sim Racing Porsche. But not the greatest of runs coming through Le Mans Corner. You can just see Guven is constantly on the flasher, and that can be a little bit distracting, and that's what most drivers use it for. The other reason being alerting lap traffic, but I think pretty much everyone these days uses it to their advantage in terms of trying to preoccupy the mind of the car ahead.
Yeah, you know, how much that advantage actually is, who knows, but you're definitely right about that. It was a great run out of Le Mans for Setsas, and Guven not even close enough, but into the turn 1. He's going to think about making the move, and Sindre a little bit wide. That should set up an opportunity into turn 3.
It should, but it's not one Guven is going to go for. Just stays in line, almost presses the nose into the back bumper of that leading GT4 machine. Guven with a slightly wider line through turn 5, looking for the speed off, looking for the speed through Big Bend to set up for a move into the hairpin. Is he going to be close enough? I don't know, unless it's an almighty send down the inside. It's not going to be the case this time around for Guven. He goes out deep on the brakes regardless to make up a 10th of a second or so, but this is starting to heat up now for the race lead in your GT4s.
Yeah, it really is. I think Guven's starting to feel the pressure on himself a little bit, Conrad. I think he feels the fact that Sergio behind maybe has a slight pace advantage. He was 4/10 quicker a couple laps ago. Remember I mentioned as getting a replay of Marcel Fassbender here, letting the 4 of Enzo Benito on through. So that was in your top 5 of the GS category, but I think Guven is feeling the pressure from Sergio Ignacio, who, once again, Connery, he brought that gap down about 3 or 4/10 of a second to not only Guven, but he was 2/10 quicker than Sendre. On top of the speed, he was quicker than Guven. So 7/10 quicker than your race leader last trip around the racetrack was the 16. And I think that's why Guven is getting so aggressive. He's seeing that gap and seeing that car in the rear view getting bigger and bigger.
And meanwhile, in TCRs, try as Sedgwick might to maintain the gap that he had and to deny the draft from the cars behind, he is steadily being reeled back in by the rest of the pack. So Gibson going very quickly at this stage, and we saw that pass just a couple of laps ago that he was able to pull off on Nebelzik, which was helped a lot by Nebelzik, I have to say, into the hairpin. You're absolutely right, Randy, when you said that Gibson is actually quite a bit faster than Nebelzik here, because look at how much he's closed up to that NX car.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Cedric and Kimo just not quite having the speed to keep up with those top 2, and you know, maybe that's why Cedric isn't letting Kimo through, or maybe he just doesn't want to fall out of P3. But the gap now, 3/10 of a second. Initially, when he got in clean air, you know, it looked like that Thomas may not have had the pace advantage, Connor, you know, for that first lap or so we were following it. But, you know, the handful of laps we've been looking at Setsas and Guven, that Corse Sim Racing TCR car has come alive. Now 3/10 of a second, you know, kind of have the feeling that Jack is probably a little bit of sitting duck at the moment for Gibson as quickly as that gap has been coming down.
Yeah, it is. So both race lead battles getting closer and closer at the moment, and it sets us up pretty well for the end of this first stint. And of course, you know, scheduled pit stops on the way for both classes. They are fuel limited in this one. In the TCRs especially, though, we do not know whether it's going to be a no tire call or just a front tire call for those guys. So very much some intrigue in the pit stops, and if there's a split strategy in that class, then it gets even more exciting.
Yeah, right now it's actually the interesting thing in terms of split strategy is going to be tires, like you mentioned. Everyone's going to, you know, be in the same kind of ballpark for fuel, but the amount of fuel they're going to be having to take is going to be about 10 seconds longer than it would, 10 seconds shorter than it would be to take front tires. And the thing about that Audi TCR is that tires are a huge, huge thing. We've seen good drop off in this race already. I mean, just talking about Jack Cedric. Actually, Jack hasn't really dropped off that much. He started this race on the cold tires, to the 13.8s. Down in the fastest laps, he was doing 12.9s, but from his fastest pace, Connery, he's dropped back down into the 13s. So been not great for Jack Sedgwick. Actually, no, I take that back. He's down in the 12s and in the 13s. So maybe not as much tire wear as I think some people were expecting, and that should prompt fuel only. But if people aren't liking the way the tires are looking, it might be a front only call when you come down pit road, as Jackson Harlow is pressuring Eric Goldner.
Yeah, he is angles to the inside for the hairpin, later on the brakes as well, sends that Altus Esports car in, and he's able to find himself through on Eric Goldner. So a textbook pass there for Jackson Harlow. And with you talking about the tire wear, Randy, I think it's helped a lot by the fact we're in the morning hours here. We are at about just a couple of minutes past 9 a.m. local time in Sim, and that means the track temperature hasn't had the chance to creep up at all. It still sits at about 21 degrees Celsius. You can make your own conversions to Fahrenheit. You probably have that, Randy, but yeah, it's a lot cooler than what we saw during the daytime at the Sebring 12.
Yeah, I mean, in the later sort of running hours of the Sebring race, this is about what we saw, but you're absolutely right. It's definitely a cooler conditions. We're looking right now at Simon Trundle and Ross Balfour. Simon has been struggling a little bit. He had a mistake a handful of laps ago, and here's another mistake. This is a big mistake from Simon, and look what it's going to mean. Freight train coming through. I believe he'll have a slowdown penalty on top of that, as you have the MSI Esports car coming through, and now it's going to be David Baker sizing up Simon. Simon pulls over to the driver's right to take that slowdown, so Simon just getting caught out there. He's had a couple of mistakes here. I don't know if he's struggling with the race car. The pace has really dropped out of that race car, Connery. It's gone from, kind of the mid to low 13s. He's been in the higher 13s. He even had a 15 a couple laps ago when he made that mistake. But Simon definitely not having the better of things right now, as the race lead in GT4 is close again.
It is just a couple of tenths between these two drivers at the moment. Agancio, has he continued to close in on, though? That's the big question. He did slightly on that last lap to Anshan Guven, but not at the rate of knots that we've seen him do so over the past 15-20 minutes or so. Anshan Guven and Setsos, it's going to be Anshan Guven in chase there in that white Porsche, and Setsos in that orange and white one. But look at this, down the pit straight. Again, still a slipstream situation for Guva, and he's just sort of stuck in that little bubble, though, behind the leading car, where he's close enough to get a good amount of draft, but not close enough to even have any chances.
Yeah, he's just, it seems that Sindre is able to get a slightly better run off the corner, Connor. We've seen that pretty consistently here. Every time Guven gets close, he pushes just that little bit too hard through the center of the corner, and I mean, Sindre gets a better exit. You think about what we saw, it's been about 8 or 9 laps now, but remember what we saw when they were close and the run out of Le Mans that Sindre Setsus got. That's just been the story for Guven, and look at that, out of turn 2. Guven was in about 2 tenths as they worked through that the end of the first sector at turn 5, excuse me, not turn 2. And just down the big bend, Guven lost another 1.5 2 tenths just because of the run off the corner. So I think Guven right now, Connery, he's got very good speed on corner entry, but he needs to manage that a little bit, maybe even check up his corner entry a little bit and get better runs on corner exit. I think that's really what's costing him.
Yeah, you can make a couple of adjustments on these cars. Of course, you have some driving assists as well. You have traction control, you have ABS, and of course maybe an adjustment to the traction control might help him a little bit off the corners. But looking at the TCR class at the moment, and this is quite a train in your mid-pack at the moment. There's Harlow and Simmons. Simmons pushing a bit wide on entry, though. You can recover it here through Sunset Bend, taking a late apex, and he's just about got that one recovered. But as soon as I saw him wash out there, I was really worrying for him. But he's recovered it well, all the way to the pit wall, and well, remaining outside the slipstream here, which is an interesting strategy. But behind these guys, Balfour and Eric Goldner are going side by side through turn number 1, and Ross Balfour ends up picking up the position. Goldner into the dirt and grass, so is Poti there. So Poti perhaps following in the tyre tracks of the 23 and continuing, well, to try and do his best rallycross impression.
Yeah, you're right about that. Ali Pote's had a good run. He started this race 38th overall. Currently sits 27th, so up 11 spots. He's done a great job running his way through this field, and he's put a lot of drivers in the rear view that started ahead of them. One thing to actually keep an eye on, Connery, pit stop cycles for your Porsches. We've had one car, Dennis Grabowski. He wasn't too far up the running order, but he has come down pit road in the last couple of laps, and hey, look at that. I mentioned that. Marcel Fassbender's down on pit road. We have TCR cars coming down towards pit road as well. We're at the halfway mark, and this actually signifies to me, Connery, if you're coming down this early, you're maybe thinking of making tires, but Fassbender actually not getting jacked up. That might be fuel only.
Yeah, 20 seconds or around about that mark, fuel only, and he's out and away at around about 21 seconds. So that's fuel only for Marcel Fassbender. No fresh rubber on that car. We see Xavier Sanchez in the TCR machine also come down in as well, and he did a 46.6 second stop, and that tells me he might have just taken a couple of bits of fresh rubber here. Yeah, he did go up and down on the jack, so Xavier Sanchez sort of the early stopper here in TCRs. Let's see how his progress is.
Yeah, 46 seconds. Correct me if I'm wrong, Connery, but considering that's a 77% fuel load, that's about going to be a full stop, right? Because I know when Neo, which runs the TCR car, obviously not fuel limited, it's about a 1 minute for fuel and tires, right?
Yeah, so it's around about that mark, yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be 4 new tires and probably full fuel for Xavier. That shouldn't be the strategy we see in the TCR cars, just because I don't think you're going to need a full tank of fuel to get to the end.
So, well, maybe the story will develop even further, and we'll definitely know more once those race-leading TCR cars come in. Xavier Sanchez, since he did start sort of near the back of the class here, he might just be trying to get safe until the end, which is why he took the additional rubber. But everyone else still yet to head their way in. Just a couple of early stops, that is it. But that is the first big stop that we've seen. Ayanchen Guven down on towards the lane from P2 in your GT4 class. This will be a good sign for the rest of them to perhaps head their way in next lap.
Yeah, Guven coming down pit road. It's interesting to see how he actually cycles out here, Connery, and where he cycles out with the traffic, because we've seen some Porsches come down and actually end up around the Audis. We've seen a couple other of our cars actually come down pit road. Eric Goldner, a machine we've been watching on and off of pit road now, and he's going to cycle back out onto the racetrack. 24-second stop for him. I think I may have seen that car get jacked up. I'm not sure, but Guven now going to get sent on the lane, and that's one of the quicker stops we've seen at 18.6.
Yep, it is. So a couple of seconds faster than what Marcel Fassbender was able to pull off in the pit stall. And actually Guven, he heads out onto the circuit, cycles into P number 9 at the moment, but is basically the fastest driver that has made a pit stop so far in that GT4 class. I'm keeping a very close eye on TCRs at the moment, because that leading pack is going to swing by Sunset Bend in just a couple of moments time. So we'll get an idea if there are any early stops for TCRs as well. We will just have to wait and see. But Jack Cedric leading what was a 5-car pack now is a 4-car pack, involving himself, Gibson, Nebelzek, and Soimonen here as they swing by pit entry. No one going to be diving down on towards the pit lane just yet from your leading pack in TCR.
Yeah, these guys are really pushing as far as they can. I'm interested to see if Sendre is going to come down this next time, or if he's going to continue to push it out there. Of course, like we said, we're still unknown on the strategy, and it's seemingly a little split in the Porsches. Actually been not so split in the Porsches. Most everyone pretty much 18 to 20 second mark, Connery, is what we've seen, 18.5 to about 20 seconds. So fuel only, I don't think I've seen a single Porsche leave the ground for new tires. It's Sendre off the final corner. It's his turn to make that choice. He's on a pit road, as is Sergio behind.
Yep, it is. So, well, you can see those cars now heading their way into the pit lane. Sindri Setsos there for Core Sim Racing, and Gancio in as well. Diego Catalan, Fenalosa also diving themselves down in. So it looks like we'll see a decent amount of GT4s take their pit stops on this lap. And Setsos gets himself stopped in his box. And I did see that car get jacked up there. So Setsos just maybe even taking the rubber here. We'll just have to wait and see what that stop time actually is for him. Everyone else from GT4s coming down in. Setsos off and away, 20 seconds. And we see 21 seconds for Agancio as well. So it could be that these Porsches are taking maybe right side tires here, I would have to say, for a stop time that short. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I'm surprised actually. Guven, I think, on the cold tire is not very good. I was expecting, when we saw that pit stop time differential, 18.6 for Guven versus 20.1 for Cindre. I was expecting for Guven to be a lot closer than he was, if I'm honest, Connery. But Cindre, I think, much better onto and off of pit road, or maybe the outlap for Guven, just no good. But that gap has grown, even though that Cindre had the longer stop.
Yeah, he did. And, Cindre, he's currently 1 second ahead of Ayanch and Guven, so it's certainly very possible that these guys can close up once again, although Setsos with the slight advantage coming through the pit stop phase in that instance. Meanwhile, I'm still waiting, and we're all still waiting with bated breath as far as those TCR stops are concerned, but I'm seeing no one from the top two groups head their way in just yet. We've had a couple of stops from further back, though. We've had David Perez come in, we've had David Baker come in, we've had Jackson Harlow also decide to make a stop, but there's been a bit of a difference there. The two Davids, Perez and Baker, with a 16.5 second stop, around about 15 seconds. Meanwhile, Jackson Harlow, Oya Ugo, and Eric Goldner taking stops more in the region of 23-24 seconds. So we're seeing some split decisions there as well.
And that's going to lead me to believe that those guys likely took a pair of front tires, is what happened here, Connery. I think that's why you're going to see those slightly longer pit stops. And I think you're going to see as well those who are choosing to actually do the new tire strategy likely are the reason they pit earlier, because they want to push that tire strategy as long as they can and push that tire advantage as long as they can. For these guys that I think are staying out, Connery, and are going to continue to run in here, I think we're going to see these guys push pretty much right up to the hour. Remember, we're at about 77% fuel limitation compared to the full tank that could be hypothetically available to the Audi TCRs. And we expect about 97 to 100 minutes on a full tank of gas with the car with a full fuel tank. Going to be seeing these cars pushing at around about an hour at 77% of that. So not surprised to see these guys not come down pit road yet, but the fact, for fuel, but the fact that they haven't come down pit road yet tells me that your top four are going to be fuel only.
Oh, and Racely GT4s is being disrupted by a TCR at the moment as they try to find their way through on Lewis Goodway coming through the first sector, and a result of Cindre Setsos' cold tires coming off the pit lane, whether that's just right side or anything more still remains to be seen. But Ayanch and Guven, regardless, as a result, has caught up that 1 second gap and makes it look more like 4.5 tenths.
Yeah, you're right about that. The way it's looking right now, and it is one of the things, Connery. If there's a disadvantage on cold tires, Guven being out on the racetrack sooner means his would have been up to temp while Cindre was on his outlap. But seems like that lap traffic didn't do Guven any favors. He's still, after reeling the gap in and getting the advantage through that the first sector, he was kind of hampered on the exit of that first sector. Coming on to Big Bend, and that has really held him up. But you can see again into Tower, he's so good on the entry corner. He just needs to back his braking up a car length, half a car length, just a little bit. He's reeling Cindre in so much on the brakes, but he's losing it all once he picks up the throttle for corner exit, because he's doing so nearly 3/4 to a half a second later, to a second later than Cindre is, and it's costing him so much of momentum.
Yep, it is. And I have a potentially dumb question.
Okay.
Since this track is clockwise, wouldn't it be left side tires you're taking?
Yeah, I would think so as well, because you really think about it, all the important corners that I can think of go to the right. So you have turn 1 in the first sector, obviously. So you have like turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, but you think about every other corner on the racetrack after you get through turn 5. You have the hairpin, you have Cunningham, you have Tower, Bishop somewhat goes to the right, but then you have the hard right-hand sweep after the double left at Bishop. Then you have Lamar Connery, which is I was saying during the last 6 hours yesterday, I think Lamar is the deceivingly the most important corner on this racetrack, because a lot of times the best run you get is down into turn 17. And then of course you have turn 17. All the important corners I can add up for the most part, there's 5 that go to the right and there's 1, maybe 2 that go to the left. I would think you would want to take the left side tires as well. That was my initial thought.
Well, there we go. There we go then. Potentially in GT4s, but both the front tires are more important on these TCRs. They're front wheel drive, so you have the power being sent through those front tires, as well as the vast amount of the cornering forces as well. So those front tires really do go off quite quickly on front wheel drive cars, and we'll have to see whether these leading cars decide to take front tires or not. We've seen a split decision from those cars near the back of the field, but with regards to which strategy is going to end up winning this race amongst these 4 cars potentially, as we'll see, actually Nebelcheck is going to be challenged here in towards turn number 1, as there we go, Rafael Silva down in towards turn 1 in that Porsche, trying to get a lapping procedure underway on these TCRs, as he's going to soon be dealing with your race leader, and as a result of pulling off those passes into turn 1, it's sort of separated out the pack a little bit, but for those cars behind, they'll be wanting that Porsche to inhibit Cedric as much as it did them, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's going to be on the brakes into the hairpin again.
Oh, that Porsche is trying to eye it up the inside at Big Ben, and Jack Cedric's going to do the smart thing. He's paying attention to the mirror, letting that happen. May have even lifted slightly early, and look at the way that gap closes between Cedric and Thomas Gibson. And I will say though, Connery, I am not expecting any of these top 4 to come down and take tires, because like I said, if you're going to do the new tire strategy, Connery, you want to try to push that advantage, the advantage for having new tires as long as possible. So you'd want to come down and, maybe around halfway, maybe even before halfway. We can see that these cars, even on a limited fuel tank, are doing an hour. If you want to take new tires, come down after maybe 35, 40 minutes, a little bit early, so you have those new tires on for as long as possible, so you can get them up to temps sooner, and so you can have that pace advantage for a longer period of time. Waiting this long, I don't think you're going to have the new tires on long enough to make a difference. Remember, we're expecting it, I think, to be about 7 to 8 seconds is going to be the difference in speed from what we've seen from other cars that have come down pit road and seemingly taken front tires. So I'm not expecting anyone in this lead group who have waited this long to try to go for it. There's not enough laps left to get the advantage out of it, I feel.
Yeah, in terms of pace differential, though, between the new front tires and just keeping all the tires on from the start of the race. When we look at Jackson Harlow at the moment, he actually set on his last lap a 2:13.252, which isn't too far off his race fastest lap of 2:13.218. So Harlow's going relatively quick on his just his fresh front tires at the moment, and some of these teams and some of these drivers at the front might be keeping an eye on these cars towards the back at the moment that have taken these 2 strategies to try and figure out which might be the best for them.
And just, kind of adding to that, Connor, we can kind of compare and contrast. So Harlow, like you said, the last handful of laps he was doing before his pit stops, he was down in the 14s. Remember, he was in some traffic, but he was kind of in the mid-13s at times. And then, like you said, he's all the way back down in the mid-13s and ripping a 13.2, which is pretty much even with his personal best. David Baker, who he's chasing in front of him, did not take tires. His last laps towards the end of his stint were in the 13.4, 13, mid to high 13s, maybe even a couple low 14s. His first lap since coming down pit road and taking fuel only was a 14.0. So there is definitely some pace disadvantage there between at least those 2, and that's really the best example we have of the no tire versus tire call. So about 6 seconds on the racetrack, and seemingly about 4 to 5 tenths once you come off of pit road, as once again Harlow actually a bigger advantage that time compared to Baker. There's about a second.
Yeah, bit of a squeeze there on the live pictures, though.
Yeah, a little
Those
bit.
are your race-leading GT4s trying to get through on a bit of TCR traffic at the moment. And, the squeeze was real between Setsos and Jackson Harlow, which is the exact car that we've been talking about when it comes to the strategy. I'm seeing the 26 spun around out of Le Mans corner, though. That's Dennis Grabowski that's had a problem. He's P14 in the GT4 class, so very much towards the back. he's had a bit of a problem here, and car drifted out, clipped the curb, perhaps in a little bit the wrong way as well, and it resulted in him going all the way around and having to wait to rejoin as well.
We're going to see it right here to this right-hander at Le Mans. I think he's got it even loose before he ever gets to that curb on the entry. And that, you know, once you're sideways Connery and you clip a curb as aggressive as that on the inside of Le Mans, yeah, your car is pretty much always going to go around. I don't really like hitting that curb on the right-hand side of Le Mans anyways. You kind of want to brush it, but when you start hopping it, bad things tend to happen.
Yeah, they really, really do. Back to the live pictures, though, as Grabowski's gotten himself back underway and can continue on with his race. Of course, we've had everyone from Porsches come down in and take their only scheduled stop, but that simply cannot be said for the TCRs, as the race leading cars in this in this leading pack, the top four, they have not come down in, and neither have positions all the way down into 10th. So those early stoppers trying perhaps a massive undercut on these guys at the moment, and they are gaining quite a bit of time compared to them. So once these leading cars do come in, it might be a bit of a sketchy situation in that they're going to have to pull off passes on those cars that pitted way earlier, and that'll just add new complexion to this battle.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But, you know, the other question you're going to have is, what has the pace sort of been like for those guys in the mid-pack? It's sort of tough to say. Who was the fifth driver we had in the train that came down pit road again? Was it, I'm trying to remember who that was. It wasn't Harlow, was it? Because at one point this TCR lead group was 5 cars strong.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I'm just having a look to try and
Was it just tacking it and he's just lost the pace?
Yeah, I think it might have been. Yeah, we'll just have to get that one sorted out. But yeah, it's 28 minutes left remaining in this one. Now, you see Tankman there, who is driver from Finland and has not quite kept the pace of your leaders. He's running in a bit of no man's land right now, just all on his own, logging laps. And sometimes, you know, drivers would prefer this situation so that they can just focus on their lap times. But Tankman, I feel like is the sort of driver who want to be stuck inside that top 4 train.
Yeah, you're right, and that's who it was. I just went back and looked. It was Takkinen we had earlier, who was part of this 4-car, what was a 5-car train, but part of the lead group, and he since dropped back about 5 seconds, either not getting the benefit with the traffic that you see here. Carlos Fenolosa now running. That's going to be Marcel Fassbender, and Fenolosa able to pick that spot up into Cunningham.
Yeah, he is, and Fenolosa, finally the driver to be pulling off the passes instead of getting passed by, as we see him move up into P5 in your GT4 class here today. But look at that. Oh, look at this train of TCR cars at the moment. This is for these are the cars that have already come down on towards pit lane, and they're all scrapping amongst themselves right now. It's Harlow Jackson, you see Oya Ugo, Goldner with the big send down the inside at Le Mans corner. It will still remain side by side between Goldner and Ugo down in towards Sunset Bend. Enzo Benito in the Porsche makes it 3 wide on the entry to the corner now. He'll just be clear by the time the turn-in point arrives. Goldner and Ugo still fighting it out, with Ugo on the inside in that number 42 TCR. It's absolutely neck and neck through the long right-hander that is Sunset Bend. Goldner just about able to keep it on the circuit and not tag that grass on the outside. Neck and neck across the start-finish line, nothing to separate them. And now into turn 1, it might have to be decided, with Goldner on the inside this time around. Ugo trying to find the speed. Does he have a nose in? He doesn't quite have the speed through there. He looks for a line into turn 3. Goldner very shallow into the corner. He gets that car stopped, and Goldner holds on.
Yeah, and these guys both being on the tires, Connery, they need to actually somewhat play nice with one another, because they're trying to chase down cars in front of them that, you know, got a 6-7 second advantage because they didn't change tires. They need to be calm with one another. You don't want to, you know, you both have the tire strategy. You don't want to spend a quarter to a half a lap side by side and giving up time, and you have 25 minutes left to go. You want to be making that move, you know, much later in the race when you have no real chance of catching someone. But I have a feeling this isn't over just yet if these guys are fighting like this.
They lost 2 seconds on that last lap alone to those cars that have not taken, that have not come down on towards the pit lane just yet. So That's a big loss for that particular group because of the amount of scrapping that they had going on. Here is that leading pack, though, coming down the pit straight. Gibson with a poor run off the final turn. Nebelcheck just content to stay in line. And these guys are just, well, at least for these cars directly behind your race leader, just watching the fuel numbers at the moment, perhaps, and looking to get the jump in the stop.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, what these guys are really thinking about doing here towards the tail end of this little 4-car train. Because we haven't seen either of them, both Cedric Nebelise and Kimmo Suominen, we haven't seen either of them really try to pressure to make a passing maneuver in quite a while. You know, you think about Cedric Nebelise, when he was up in second, he attempted a couple moves on Jack Cedric. There was only one I can really think of that almost got done, but after that he wasn't even really trying, and he's since just been sitting there. Kimmo Suominen, though, he's going to be one I think to watch because he has been the calmest in this lead pack. I think, Connery, he's just been sitting there in everyone's slipstream, slowly saving fuel. And I know from history, I've raced with Kimmo before, back when he was at Glacier. I've run with him a lot. He is typically someone who likes to go for the fuel save strategy. So if he feels the opportunity is there, he will frequently go for it. And I think he might have the best opportunity of all the cars in this train to maybe save a good chunk of a time on pit road with the fill.
So keep an eye on him when it comes to those pit stops for this leading group, though. But we're quickly getting to the point where they simply do have to come down in, maybe over the next couple of laps. I'm seeing number 25 having a problem. That's Charlie Summers that has had a bit of a spin and almost rejoined directly into the path of Grabowski. There's number 25. There he is, up on screen for you now. And he was battling with Justin Brunner down at the bottom end of the Porsche class. And, well, he just tracks out a bit too much and clips the grass a bit.
Yeah, so unfortunate there for him, but you know, I'm still keeping an eye on these TCR cars, if I'm honest, Connery. I want to see when these top 4 come down pit roads. It has to be any time now. We're over an hour into this race on what's on a fuel limited class, so they have to be hitting pit road, you know, much sooner. I will say, Connery, I'm a little surprised for those who came down pit road in the early going and didn't take fuel. I don't know why you'd want to just come, you know, if you're able to go for an extra 23 minutes, wouldn't you want to just essentially have the car as light as possible for as long as possible rather than just coming down at halfway? You know, I know that oftentimes, you know, so if tires are at play, yes, you want to come down at around halfway and just get your fuel and tires and go and get the new tires on. But if you're only taking fuel, and you know, there wasn't that much crazy traffic, honestly, in TCR, everyone was so kind of equal pace that, you know, there wasn't much to really be gained. Why come down so early?
Yeah, the two Davids can answer that for you, Perez and Baker. They are running a couple of tenths of a second slower than those cars that did take took the older tires, but they're still keeping relatively good pace at the moment. I just saw P8, 9, and 10 come down towards the lane for TCRs, which might be the early signal that the stops are imminent for the race leaders. Antonin Titus in. We also had Poti in as well, and Poti actually did not take any tires, and I'm waiting for Titus's stop time. He has taken tires, so the split decisions continue.
Yeah, that's not a good call, I think, from he's actually been on pit road quite a while. I think he took 4. He did a full stop with 21 minutes left to go in the race. He did a full stop.
Interesting call, I have to say.
So he basically just threw his race away, is why that's an interesting call.
Yeah, that's probably not the fastest strategy, as I always say that. But again, we'll just have to see how far up he's able to finish after having doing that. But look at those 4 cars in TCRs. This is your leading group in this class. And Cedric leading it as he has done so pretty much all day. And Gibson, the car second in line after a pass. He was able to pull up, but there's the decision. Jack Cedric down on towards the pit lane. Everyone else, though, staying out.
And this is what I was talking about. Remember, I was talking about cars saving fuel. So Jack Cedric coming down on towards pit road. He's going to have to take at least a single lap, 1 full lap more fuel than anyone else inside of the top 4. He stops in the lane, gets in the box. That car's surely not going to get jacked up with the fuel, and no, it's not going to happen. Fuel and tires do happen at the same time in this car. Let's see what the number is. We've seen about 16, 17 seconds for cars fuel only, 14.3 for Cedric, and he's away. Now the question is going to be how much or how little do these other three have to take as Gibson now leads, Cedric cycles back into second, and Chemo P3.
Yeah, absolutely. So this race keeps getting better and better as a strategy battle. 14.2 seconds stopped in the pit box for Jack Sedgwick. Fuel only is the decision, and it looks like for a vast majority of those cars that have come down at this stage, it is the fuel only call for them. But whether that will continue for now the top three out there, that is still a question, but I think right now matching what Cedric is doing is probably the best plan.
Yeah, I think you're right. We had a handful of other cars come down pit road. Simon Trundle just came off the pit road. He did basically the same exact thing as Cedric. Cedric Gesmeyer, same play at 14.3, just now off of pit road. So everything, I think everyone, like I've been saying, Connor, is going to be in that same sort of ballpark of 14, 15, 16 seconds, except for maybe these three cars that have been able to go a little bit longer. If they can take, a lap less of fuel, maybe they can shave a second, get down into the 13s, maybe the 12s on the fill time. And, as close as these guys were to Sedgwick, I'd say if they can shave a second or two off of their fill time, as long as they're good on the entry and exit of pit road, they'll be putting Jack in the rear view. The question will be, though, how much?
Yeah, it is. And, well, is this going to be the lap that everyone will have to dive in on with 18 minutes and 45 seconds left remaining? Looks like Gibson slowing that car up for pit entry, but no, he stays out one extra lap, and Nebelschik is a car that's down in. Soimonen following him onto the pit lane there, as now Gibson's been left all on his lonesome at the very front of the TCR field.
The 2-lap advantage there. Let's see what these guys can do. Cedric actually misses the pit box, and that's going to be a race killer. And Swoiminen is the only one to really watch here. Cedric's fill time is basically irrelevant at this point because of that second or two that he lost. Having to back up to get back into the pit lane, waiting for Chemo, and he's off at 14.1. Didn't save any time, and you can see he's clear of Cedric.
Yeah, but Cedric had a slightly shorter stop, and somehow he's able to keep tabs on that Core Sim Racing driver coming off the pit lane, so it wasn't as detrimental to his race at first look. He's still in this one. There is Cedric looking to get his way through, and Cedric just about able to come out ahead of these guys, but the leading pack is starting to be re-established already.
Yeah, if you're Cedric Nebelschik, you have to be kicking yourself. I think that 13.8 second stop would have been enough to put him in front of Jack Sedgwick had he not made that mistake. Remember, he lost at least 2 car lengths, if not more, of time to Chemo Swoiminen, so he would have been ahead of Chemo, and he would have either been side by side with Jack Sedgwick Connery, or I think he may have been just out in front of him, as Thomas Gibson is going to be the next one we have to see here come down pit road in about the next 1/3 of a lap. He's currently working into Bishop.
Yeah, he is. So just that one car out at the front of the field right now. He is the only TCR that has not taken a stop yet, is Thomas Gibson. So he's been doing some absolutely massive fuel saving out there, and he's able to go one extra lap compared to everyone else. Will that pay dividends? So when it comes to the pit stop time, will it cycle him out ahead of Jack Sedgwick here? That's the gamble that Gibson has gone for, and now he's hoping that he comes up lucky.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here with Gibson. Able to go 2 laps longer than anyone else. Does he make the call to come down on towards pit road this time? You have to be thinking surely he might, as he works off into turn 17 and down he comes. Gibson, last car on towards pit road, I believe, in TCR. And what's the fill time going to be? 13.8 is the quickest mark I've seen, and he's gone a lap longer than the driver who took that.
Yeah, he has. So it's going to be no tires. We know that for certain, as Gibson gets himself stopped in his pit box, and that counter starts. What's the time going to be compared to everyone else? Already up to around about 10 seconds, but it's only 12 seconds stopped on the pit lane for Thomas Gibson. That's 2 seconds faster than what Cedric's stop was. Now he's going to look to try and get between those green cones. Cedric is coming down the pit strip right now across the start-finish line, but Gibson, is he going to come out ahead here? I think he is. That's a big call, and that's a big gap as well for the Core Sim Racing driver. The saving strategy's worked.
Yeah, this is, I mean, they really just let sort of Gibson sit in the slipstream, save a ton of fuel, and didn't really have any way to pressure him, did they? They've lost so much time in comparison. So now you have to think about, Connery, what these guys are going to be thinking, even for future races like this, what this means to the strategy. So that's going to allow Gibson to, I think, pretty much run away with this one. I don't see him giving up this, 3-second advantage he now has?
Yeah, 3-second advantage with only 15 minutes remaining, about 7.5 laps for these guys. Yeah, that's going to be a huge amount of work for those drivers behind, but these are some of the best TCR drivers on the iRacing service, so if there are drivers that can do it, it's these ones, but they're up against Gibson, who is widely considered to be the best in these cars.
Yeah, but I just don't see these guys reeling in 3 seconds. Gibson is definitely, like you said, one of the best, 100%, but the likes of Cedric, the likes of Swoman, and the likes of Cedric, they're definitely no slouches themselves. So yeah, they just don't have any ace up their sleeve, do they, Connery? They didn't save any fuel, and they didn't take tires, so I'm not, Gibson is theoretically a slightly lighter car right now. Tires may be a little bit more cooled off because he pit slightly later. That's the big question. By the way, in GT4, Guven has not been able to keep the pace with Sindre Setsas. Remember, we saw that gap earlier at about 2 or 3 tenths of a second at times. It's now open to 1.5. So Guven really falling off the back of your race leader, and it seems all Setsas at this point with 13 and 14 minutes left to go. However, it does mean with Gibson's strategy call, Core Sim Racing lead in both categories.
Yep, they do. They're looking to have an absolutely fantastic day, although Setsos, he actually got a bit of a slide on coming through Sunset Bend. He's lost a bunch of time here to Ayanchan Guven. That gap now under a second. It's 0.8 tenths of a second between P1 and P2. Setsos can't afford to be doing that.
Yeah, you're right. He needs to be, very, very careful. And as I just said, I hit him with the commentator's curse. It looks like Setsas may be able to run away with this one. He makes a mistake and costs himself the better part of 7 tenths. So, yeah, Sindre needs to be careful. Definitely needs to be careful here inside. We only have about 6 or 7 laps left to go in this race. And Guven is, if he's seeing Setsas making mistakes, he is going to get aggressive trying to reel him back in.
Yeah, here we go. Look at that TCR pack, though. This is basically P2 and back right now. Kimu Sumden in the middle at the moment with that Porsche trying to get through on them. And, they are successful, but it has stacked up this particular pack for P2. Cedric leading them around at the moment. Sumden with the big dive to the outside of the hairpin. If he can keep it here, he might have a chance, but no. Instead, he'll be challenged. Nebelshek had a look coming through the exit of the hairpin, but he has to fall behind as well. I think these guys are now resigned to the fact that Gibson might run away with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. They saw that 3-second advantage, and I think they realized, well, we're not going to be able to reel that in. Let's go at it. So fight's going to be on for second here as Kimo. I'm surprised he was able to defend there, Connery, coming off the hairpin. I thought that Cedric was going to have the advantage and be able to maybe get the inside move and, through that little kind of chicane thing that follows the hairpin. It's not really a chicane, but when you're side by side, it feels really, really snug, really tight. Compared to when you're single file through there. But Cedric, I think, sort of let Kimo kind of slot himself back in.
Yeah, he really, really did. But this battle will continue for the final 12 minutes that we have. And also keeping an eye on the race lead in GT4s as well, but that gap looks to be just stretching it out just a little bit more as Setsos back into a rhythm. So the main battle at the moment is this battle for P2 in the TCRs, and it can go any way of 3 ways at the moment. Cedric at the front of the train with Simonen in second in the train, and you also got Nebelshek in third in the train as well. So positions 2, 3, and 4 that we're looking at right now, and there's still going to be a big fight between these between this particular group. We've just seen a little preview.
Yeah, I mean, preview was, I think, maybe an understatement here, but it depends. These guys are so evenly matched, Connery, that, they've been really struggling to really race with one another. It's kind of funny, actually. They're so close in speed that every time one of them sort of gets a run, the guy ahead just sort of blocks it off, and, there's no, neither of them are making any of them aren't making any big mistakes. These guys have just been all kind of, I'd say all 4 of these drivers in the top 4 have kind of all driven a picture-perfect race in TCR. We've not seen any mistakes. We've not seen any silly moves. They've just been fast, and they've just been clean, and it's been great because of it. Here comes a little bit of faster Porsche traffic. That looks like the 4 in the Bonito.
Yeah, Benito to the outside of Sedgwick coming through the hairpin. He's not quite going to be able to do it through that sequence of corners. Just has to wait to do it a little bit later on. And Sedgwick would prefer he did this sooner rather than later, as he can do it in the best place for that TCR car, just before the brakes in towards Cunningham, and doesn't give the opportunity for Soimonen to use the gap that the Porsche made on Sedgwick. So there we go. There's Enzo Benito through. Race lead GT4s, though, that gap is now around about 0.6 of a second after a pretty good lap from Ayhanch and Guven, lopping off another 0.5 of a second. So that one is steadily starting to become a thing, and the closer and closer Guven gets, the faster the rate that he'll catch, just due to the even small slipstream that these GT4s have.
Yeah, and he finally managed a nice kind of run going through Le Mans. He really gave it up on the entry and got a fantastic exit going down with a great run here in towards Sunset Bend. 0.5 of a second is about what the gap gets to on their entry into turn 17. And Guven, he's going to have about 9 minutes, Connery, and that should equate to about 4 laps, maybe better part of 5 laps, actually, I think, for Guven to have an attempt here.
Yeah, it might just be enough time. The gap is now 3.5 of a second into turn 1. So Guven is giving it his all here to the end of the race. Despite being a little slow in the first portion of this second stint, he's really driving the wheels off that thing at the moment and keeping himself in contention for first place overall in this race. So keep an eye on that one, that is for sure. Battle for P2 and TCRs is also going to be a big feature for the end of this race between Sedgwick, Soimonen and Nebelzek. So this is looking like it's going to be an absolutely brilliant end to what has been a very interesting race.
Yeah, it definitely is, as we're trying to monitor both of these fights. Sedgwick able to get a good run off of turn 5, but Kimo having the slipstream might just eye up a move going down to the hairpin. He slots himself to the inside, but that's just a feint, trying to get Sedgwick to make a mistake of some sort. Not going to be able to go through with that move, however. 0.2 of a second the gap, though, between second and third in that category. But now let's check back in with Guven, as the gap still 0.4 of a second as they head towards Tower. Back straightaway going to be the next passing zone for them, as Sedgwick and Soimonen and the like into Cunningham, but still not close enough.
Yeah, so they're just giving us the tease at the moment before we might even see a battle through the final couple of laps between these guys. And these TCR cars certainly capable of very, very close racing. The bumpers are going to be out, the doors are going to be shoved, and that is some of the racing that we like to see in TCR. Speaking of, though, George Simmons embroiled in a battle here in the TCR class. That's towards the bottom end of the top 10, if not outside it, as they're all stacked up there, coming through that section. Oya Ugo with the dive down the inside of Golden. There's a bit of contact between those two cars at the back of this pack, but they're all able to hold on. The good thing about front-wheel drive cars is you can mash the throttle and the car doesn't spin.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about front-wheel drive cars. You just sort of hold that foot down, and it's really no problem. But these guys, a couple of the drivers, if I remember, Connery, that ended up going with the tire strategy, and it's not really worked out on them. They're trying to catch the drivers in front of them, and they're close. But I think they've kind of dropped off in pace from where they would have liked.
Yeah, here we go, though. TCR's race, well, not race lead, but for battle for P2. Sedgwick having to open the door for a Porsche to work its way through on the inside. In fact, he'll try and get a bit of a cut back on that Porsche, but here comes Simon and brings it to the back bumper of that NX car. And now here comes Nebelzek down the inside of Simon and through the first sector. There's racing room being given between the two of them right now as they head their way through turn 5 and look to get the entry in towards Big Bend. There's 2 tires in the dirt for Simon, and as they continue with nothing separating them on their way into the hairpin.
Yeah, these guys are not going to lift at this point either, and I think if either of them, Connery, get the opportunity at Sedgwick, they are not going to be overly patient with him. That was a little bit argy-bargy, I think, from Jack in terms of the blocking. He came off of turn 1 and blocked all the way down to the inside. Kimo then went to the right, and Jack then closed the door all the way across the racetrack again, leaving only about half a car width on the right-hand side, and Kimo had to check up, and that's what's gotten Kimo into this situation that he was side-by-side with Sedgwick. I think if Kimo gets there, he is not going to be too afraid of giving Sedgwick a little bit of a run and bump when he eventually gets there.
Yeah, and we're no stranger to that in this particular class, let's be certain. But right now, they are sort of getting to the very tail end of this race at the moment. It's going to be 3 laps to go by estimate next time Sindre Setsos heads his way across the line. So there's going to be limited time to make things happen in this battle. And also,
Sindre made a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah, I just saw that up on my screen. Sindre, your race leader in GT4s, making a slight mistake through Sunset Bend again. And now Guven, he wasn't in a position to capitalize on that time around, but he's made that gap seem a little bit less. Here comes the almighty dive into turn 1. It was a wide entry from Setsos. He gets the speed off the corner, but now this is being brought to a boil.
If Guven wants to make that move work, he needs to be a little bit more patient with it, Conroy. He needs to be closer into turn 1 in order for that dive to work, because you lose time on the exit. But look, he's just all over the back of Setsos here at the exit of turn 5, but on to Big Bend. Setsos getting the slightly better run this time as they work down towards the hairpin. Guven surely not going to be close enough for a move, but he's looked at a couple aggressive opportunities already today, and he should just look to close in here and keep the run up on the run to Cunningham.
2.5 laps to go for these drivers to sort out their differences. Setsos has been particularly good coming through this first sector, and he's able to eke out that gap just a couple of tenths of a second more. But it's the tail end of the lap where Setsos seems to have a problem. We've seen multiple mistakes from him coming through Sunset Bend that has meant that Guven's able to catch right back up. So he needs to put a stop to that now if he's going to have any sort of comfort in winning this race. Guven, though, his objective is to apply the pressure for a couple of moments and try and force those mistakes out of that core driver.
Yeah, and I think what Sindre is really struggling with, Conroy, if I'm thinking back, it's really the exit out of turn 17. It's turn 17 where Sindre seems to really be struggling. The way the rest of this lap has gone, Sindre's looked pretty good and pretty pacey, and actually seemed quicker than what Guven's able to manage. But I think it's just the exit of that final corner with all the bumps that Sindre is really struggling with.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be the case, but Sindre's had a pretty good lap here. He's able to extend the gap, but, you know, will that be all for naught when it comes to that trouble spot of the exit of Sunset Bend here? Again, into the corner they go. Guven going very, very wide on entry, looking to cut back for a late apex to gain all that speed down the pit straight. And, well, the gap has increased since the last time they headed their way across the start-finish line, as this gap just ekes in and out like a yo-yo. But, you know, if Guven's going to be close here towards these final 2 laps, then he's going to have no problems with going for the absolute end. Oh, he goes a bit wide through turn 1.
Yeah, I saw that too. A little bit of a slide as he came off of turn 1, but he's able to reel a 10th in through turn 1. Setsos a little bit of a rough bump over the curb there at turn 3, and that's going to allow Guven to just reel him in a little bit. And look at the run off of turn 5. Guven's got the momentum through Big Bend, and he'll have the slipstream. It won't be enough to have a move into the hairpin, but he'll close in a couple car lengths before they get to the brakes.
Yeah, a little look to the inside, just showing the nose, making his presence absolutely clear in the wing mirrors of your race leader, as they're close once again, under 0.4 of a second between those 2 drivers right now. The battle between Cedric Soimonen and Nebelzik has calmed down just a little bit, but that can pick up inside the final lap. But it's all for this GT4 race lead at the moment, because Setsos has been holding on, but that's all that he's been doing so far. If Guven has a very late race charge here and puts in a couple of quali laps towards the end here, then he could be in big trouble.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. And I will say, in that TCR fight for second, as we're coming towards the white flag lap, it's not over just yet. There's a faster Porsche coming through, and that Porsche has a class that they're battling with behind. Cars are battling with behind, so I don't think Fassbender is going to be able to sit behind the likes of Cedric Soimonen and Nebelzik here. He's gotten to the back of this group. The traffic might just be important here as Setsos and Guven down the long back straightaway. And again, Sindre able to get the better run onto the back straightaway, but the slipstream helping Guven.
Yep, it is. It's keeping him close. 0.3 into the entry of Sunset Bend. Guven with the shallower line. He carries so much speed in, but will that result in a penalty in terms of speed off? That is the question. He's able to match Sindre in this instance, but now with the white flag flying, just one more lap to go here in this battle. Is Sindre holding on again in towards turn number 1? Guven not close enough. There's that battle though for P2 in your TCR class as they are heading towards the final corner for the penultimate time in this event. Sedgwick looking to hold on in this one ahead of those two other TCR cars. There's Marcel Fassbender in the background in the Porsche trying to work his way through as well. Soimonen's going to get very close here in towards turn number 1. Goes all the way to the pit wall. Porsche looking to get itself through as well. It'll be slight bit of 3 wide in towards turn number 1. It's going to be a compromised line from Cedric that Soimonen might be able to capitalize on, but he doesn't carry enough speed in. Nebelschek just having to be on the outside looking in here as well. I'm having a look back towards your GT4 race leader because I think Sindre at the moment has done just about enough through the first sector, but I could very much be wrong if he makes a mistake coming towards the end, as we will stay with this TCR class as they are giving us the action. They're giving us the grandstand finish at the very final lap of the 90 minutes of Sebring here in IMSA, as now onto the brakes, into the hairpin they go. Soimonen just a bit sketchy into there, car fishtailed a little bit on the brakes into the hairpin, but he's able to keep it together. But the opportunities now are starting to run out for Soimonen and Nebelschek. There's yet another Porsche trying to head its way through, and even the Porsche will be run out of road as these TCRs want to focus on their own battle here as Batstor gets himself through in that Porsche, but he makes contact with Nebelschek. Nebelschek spins him around, and now it might just be a battle between Cedric and Soimonen to decide P2 in this TCR class. We're going to have a look though to the race lead overall though, because Sindre Setsource, he's heading his way through Sunset Bend. I think Guven might be out of fuel. He is out of fuel. He's slowed down Yeoman Straight, so it's Sindre Setsource clear to the start finish line to win the 90 minutes at Sebring. But Guven, he's going so slow to get to the end. He might be able to get himself across the start finish line. He will do, but now we look towards TCRs because Thomas Gibson is heading his way into the final corner. He's been clear. It was a big strategy call from Gibson with the fuel saving in the first stint that netted them a huge advantage after the scheduled stops. Thomas Gibson for Core Sim Racing out of the final corner wins in the TCR class, and it's a close run thing for P2 in the background. Cedric just about 2 car lengths ahead of Kimmo Soimonen at the line.
What a final lap we just saw. Drama in both your categories. Guven having fuel problems. I think he was able to make it to the line just. I have to get caught. Yes, he was. And in your TCR category, of course, that incident with the faster traffic with Cedric Nebelis there, Connery. Of course, Gibson holding on for the win, but Kimmo not able to get to Cedric as well. Great final lap from both classes up in the top positions.
Looks like it wasn't fuel issues, but a big slowdown penalty coming through the first sector for Ayanshan Guven. I'll just have to confirm that one as we'll get our official race results in just a couple of moments' time. It does seem like that engine of Guven is having a bit of a problem, so it might even end up being fuel issues, but here are your official race results from the 90 minutes of Sebring here. Sindre Setsource winner by 11.1 seconds, but that does not tell the entire story at all. Guven chasing him all the way to the checkered flag, and Sergio Agancio is going to be the driver that finishes on the final step of the podium. Enzo Benito in P4. Fenalosa recovers to P5 after what was a horrible first stint for him. Marcel Fassbender in P6. Maxime Renstein in P7. Alessandrini in P8. Diego Catalan in P9. Daniel Patstor rounds out the top 10 in your GS class. You also have Lucas Galba, Justin Brunner, Rafael Silva, Dennis Grabowski, Daniel Rash, and Charlie Summers, bringing things down to P16. And then you have those cars that unfortunately did not finish. Josh Thompson, Thomas Petitjean, you see Christian Dambitz, Govan Keeney, Thibaut Prosp, Jason Stenny, and Moritz Lohner towards the back end of that class. Then in TCRs, Thomas Gibson taking the race win after playing the strategy game all race long. And he gains a 3-4 second advantage coming out the scheduled stops to win here over Jack Sedgwick, who was leading all day but didn't get the same opportunity to do the fuel saving that Gibson was able to do, with Kimmo Soimonen coming home in third place. Cedric Nebelship with a late race incident. He finishes in P4. Ross Balfour in P5. Joni Tankanen in P6. Cedric Geismer in P7. We also have Simon Trendell P8. Jackson Harlow in P9 with David Perez in the top 10. In P11, Lipuoti, Oya Ugo, and you also have David Baker from P11 to P13. You see Lewis Goodway P14, Andy Salmon in P15, Eric Goldner P16. George Simmons will finish in 17th place in TCRs with Antonin Titus in 18th. Xavier Sanchez in 19th, and Patrick Huinci in P number 20. And then you look a little bit further down and you see Robin Hasse unfortunately did not finish this race. So he finishes right at the back of the finishing order today. But Randy, that was an absolutely brilliant race from start to finish. We got a close finish inside your TCRs. We were looking at a close finish for the GT4s, but Anshan Guven was not quite able to do just enough to get to the pointy end of the field, and Sindre Setsos, with a well-run race, he's able to take it all.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. It was looking like, you know, the timing's not going to entirely tell the story of this race. Yeah, a little bit of a fuel problem for Guven, but he still provided a great run. And he's probably just happy, Conrad, that he's able to just coast his way to a P2. It had to be a stressful half a lap. I saw the time dropping off. I thought maybe he just, you know, was frustrated and made a mistake or something. But I'm sure that was anxiety-inducing as he was going around, hoping that thing had the fuel in it to at least get him to start-finish.
Yeah, so he just about had the legs to get across the start-finish line without dropping the position to Sergio Agancio, who finishes P3 here today. And, well, we do have Sindre inside the commentary booth right now, and what a brilliant race. You come home with the race win in your GT4 class, but has your heart rate come down from the end just yet?
Yeah, it has come down, but I'm still dripping of sweat. That was a really hard race. Yeah, all credit to Iancan for keeping the pressure on for literally 90 minutes straight. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was incredibly crazy to even watch, let alone to drive like you guys. But you know, with this Porsche Cayman GT4 car now on the iRacing service, and it's only been on this on the service for a very, very short time. What's your opinion of the car? Because it seemed like it has the potential to be giving some great racing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a good addition. It's a bit bouncy here and there. I don't know if I have figured out the setup yet. I have literally done 3 hours maybe of setup work on this car, so yeah, very limited. But still, it's yeah, good car. I don't know how, if the draft was a bit bigger, maybe it would have been better for racing and watching. But yeah, it's still a good car.
Yeah, I mean, the bounciness may come down to Sebring being bouncy by default with the different track surfaces, but with this race win in the bag now, and a pretty big race indeed as well, because the strength of field in that GT4 class stood at around about 6,500. That's got to be a great win, to be taking home in what is a relatively new car as well, which people haven't had that time to try and figure out.
Yeah, I'm happy. I haven't. This is the first race for me in this car as well. I haven't run any official races until this, so I'm super happy with this win. I didn't expect it at all. So yeah, it's just a surprise really that I won this race.
Yeah, there we go. A surprise or not, you've done it. You've come top in the class. And is there anything you want to say before we let you go?
Massive thanks to Core Sim Racing. Big shout out for Thomas Gibson as well for making it a double win for Core in this race. Want to shout out Set1 Dashboard and Craig Setup Shop.
Well, there we go. Fantastic race win, and it's a brilliant performance from you. That was Sindre Setsos from Core Sim Racing taking away the race win in your GT4 class, Randy. And he was pressured all the way. You saw him mention it. He was absolutely sweating towards the end of the race there. And sometimes wins, if they come often for a driver, can get a little bit routine. But that definitely wasn't a routine win for Sindre.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. And Sindre is actually making it a habit of being good in these Porsches when we see the new cars coming out. I remember when the Porsche Cup car came out, Sindre really early on was one of the quick drivers in that Porsche Cup car, and he still is to this day. And now that we got the GT4 car, he takes really the first big win of this car in a broadcasted race. So good to see that for Sindre. But you are right, it was a rough win for Sindre. There were a couple times, Connery, where it looked like it might be, like Sindre was running away, but Guven did well to really keep him honest. There were several times we saw that gap open up, and we're kind of like, okay, this is it. This is where Guven's finally going to start losing touch of Sindre, and then Guven would be able to reel him back in, or Sindre would make a mistake. But regardless, through the entire 90 minutes, it was a fantastic race between the two of them.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant indeed. But with that, that's going to be all that we have time for here in the IMSA 90 minutes of Sebring. It was an absolutely brilliant race in both classes here today. Thank you very much to iRacing for putting this on and showcasing some of their new content here on the iRacing service. And big thanks to IMSA for putting their name on it as well. I am Connery Maddock. I've been joined by Randy Cheneth, Hugo Luis behind the scenes, making all those cameras and graphics work, and the camera pack provided to us by Istvan Balo, trackcams22.com. Make sure you subscribe to all of the iRacing Esports Network channels, be it on Facebook, be it on YouTube, be it on twitch.tv, because we have some absolutely fantastic racing coming at you in the not too distant future, so stay tuned for that. But for now, goodbye.